today we're looking at cognitive level 3 and the thinking maps that go along with it. What we're going to be looking at today with Bloom's taxonomy is the cognitive level 3 that covers creating something new as well as evaluating the content that you're working with. Some of the verbs that you might find at this cognitive level would be words like verify, evaluate, arrange, devise, and even rewrite. These verbs are verbs that you need to understand so that you understand what the teacher is asking of you and you are able to answer the questions according to what the teachers want. The first verb that we're going to be looking at today is the verb verify. Verify means to prove the truth of something by considering the facts. And when you consider the facts, you are applying your knowledge to the criteria. So an example would be you have got information on the skeleton of a human body. Verify if the following statements are true or false. Does anyone have a question based on the verb verify? Okay, so your question is, if we were looking at this lesson, verify if the following cognitive levels are for this particular cognitive level? Not quite. It could be something like verify if these verbs are used at this cognitive level. So yes, you're on the right track, and that's what we're looking for. Okay. I think what is important to remember about the word verify is that you've got to have the background knowledge. You need to be remembering the facts that you have studied and applying those facts in order to prove the statement. So that's a good question. When you are studying for your exams, do you have to use all of these methods in order to prove that you have studied? You use the methods that work for you. So we're giving you the tools, and you need to decide which method works for you. But also, you can't bake a cake without the flour. So when you are using these methods, give them a try. Don't deny the opportunity because you feel uncomfortable. Give it a try and see if it works, because we're teaching you these because they work. These thinking maps work. You understanding the cognitive levels helps you understand what the teacher's going to be testing it, because we're testing it regardless of whether you're ready for it. That's why we're preparing you like this. Exactly. So when you are studying, as you say, you want to know what the teacher's going to ask you. You want to know what these verbs mean. Because if you're not studying according to this, you're going to get to the exam and not know what the teacher wants from you. And we don't want that. We want you to be prepared for it. The next verb that we're going to be looking at is the verb evaluate. To evaluate means to essentially make a judgment based on a set of criteria. So you're going to explain how you come to make a judgment based on your knowledge, and you'll have to reference the evidence. Okay, what does criteria mean? Based on a set of facts, a situation. So criteria is asking you to look at a set of facts and then make a decision based on that. Okay, so that's a good question. Your question is evaluating the same as if I'm looking at a bird and a frog, comparing and contrasting them, and then deciding which one is better? Not quite. It could be. So let me rephrase your suggestion. Looking at a bird and a frog, I could evaluate which one would be better at jumping, which one is more likely to fly. So you have an idea of what you need to judge. When you are making a decision, you need to know what the end goal is. What are you trying to accomplish? And you look at the facts and decide which one can best accomplish that. Okay, so to put it in a different way, let's say which way would be better to solve the question 2 times 10? Using the multiplication method your teacher taught you, or to add up to the digit 2 10 times. Now, ultimately, your answer should be to use the multiplication method that your teacher taught you. It's much quicker and it's more likely to be accurate because you're less likely to forget to add up certain numbers. So you are looking at the two options and making a decision on which one is best in that scenario. That's what it means to evaluate, to make a judgment based on the facts. Okay, so let's put in that definition. And we said criteria simply means the two aspects you're looking at, the facts or the situation. So the next verb we are looking at is the verb arrange. And I think you guys would be quite familiar with this verb. Arrange simply means to put in order. So when you are arranging something, you are considering the facts and placing them in the correct order. Absolutely. The example that you've provided is, are we arranging if we are asked to arrange in alphabetical order? Absolutely. It means you are taking the facts, the content, the aspects, and you are putting it in the order that the teachers have asked you to do. Again, another example of how we can use arrange within the alphabetical order. So this one specifically being certain letters of the alphabet that you've provided. Absolutely. Arrange isn't only used within the school environment. You can see it outside of school. So for example, your parents could be asking you to arrange the cutlery in the drawer. So you would then make sure that all the knives are with the knives and all the spoons are with the spoons and all the forks are with the forks. So you are arranging the cutlery from chaos on the table to organization in the drawer. That's another good one of how it's used in school. So the word arrange, you would have the body parts, so natural science, and you'd have to arrange the body parts from toes to head that have to be placed in order. And again, it will be as instructed. Your teacher will explain what they want you to arrange and how they want it arranged. The next verb that you could encounter within this cognitive level is the verb devise. Devise simply means to create a plan by applying your own knowledge of the theory. So an example of that would be devise a business plan for a shop that sells groceries. You are creating a plan, but more accurately, you are applying your knowledge on the theory of how to create a business plan, as well as what needs to be in a shop for groceries. So you are using your background knowledge and you are creating something new with it. Absolutely. So what they've done is they know what they want to do. They have a theory, some background knowledge of a set of principles where they need to create a plan to overcome something. And in the case of good versus evil, the evil scientist always wants to devise a plan in order to accomplish something. Absolutely. Okay. So another verb that you can encounter within this cognitive level that expects you to either evaluate or create would be the verb rewrite. And I think this is one that you guys are also very familiar with. You are simply rewriting something, you're writing it again, but this time you have to correct it. So a teacher could give you a scenario and ask you to rewrite an alternative ending. So in the English language, this is one of my favorite things to do with children, is you read a novel and then I say, okay, well, you've read it. You've gone from beginning to end. Now let's rewrite an alternative ending. You are creating something new and rewriting it to how you think the correct order should be. So when we did Artemis Fowl in the classroom, I gave you a set of facts that were in the wrong order. You had to apply your knowledge and rewrite it in the correct order. Okay, so it's not the worst thing to ever happen to anyone to have to rewrite something. It's how you learn. You are applying your own knowledge and creating something new with it. You are having a very high cognitive level thought process happening. And it's great. It's something that you need to do often, where you look at things and say, okay, how could we change it? How can we make it better? And if it's a written task, you would then rewrite it. So, rewrite, to write something again, applying your own knowledge of the facts. So let's look at the thinking maps that you could be using when you are using this cognitive level. You can actually use all the previous thinking maps that we have discussed at previous levels, but I'm going to suggest 2 new ones. We're going to be looking at a tree map, sorry, not a tree map, we did that last time. We're going to be looking at a brace map as well as a flow map. A flow map is an excellent map to use if we are trying to sequence things. Sequence means to put things in a certain order. So step 1, step 2, step 3. Recipes are an example of how we use sequencing. And if you wanted to visualize it, this thinking map, the flow map, would be the thinking map that you would use. So when you are sequencing things, you have to put it in the correct order, and you have to either listen or read the instructions very carefully, because one step out of order can change the end result. A flow map looks something like this, where you would then make sure that you are putting things in the correct order, and you would write the information within a block, move on to the next block, and then move on to the next block. And if need be, you could actually just change the direction. Yes?
It looks like a food chain.
Very good. I'm glad you made that connection. It looks like a food chain. That's exactly what a food chain is supposed to look like. It's step by step. Something happens, then something else happens, then something else happens. So you have a sequence of events. Corn is eaten by an insect. That insect is eaten by a bird. The bird is eaten by a bigger bird. And you could actually maybe even have another one where the bird is actually eaten by humans, depending on the type of bird. So yes, a flow map is sequencing events, and the thinking map that it is trying to use when you are using food chains would be this one. It wants you to make that connection that there are things happening step by step. But it can be used for other subjects, not just not just food chains in natural sciences. As I mentioned before, it can be used for anything. You can sequence events within history. So if you are studying World War II or the Industrial Revolution, you could look at sequencing the events, not just looking at all the causes, but the order in which they happened. So the next map that we're going to be looking at, the next thinking map that we're going to be looking at, is the bridge map. The bridge map is used for seeing analogies, and it's an excellent thinking map if you need to understand or even evaluate something. When you are using the bridge maps, you can actually use it to look at aspects across subjects. So something that is in English could be used as an analogy in history. Perhaps even something in math could be used as an analogy in social sciences. I'm going to show you a little video clip in the hope that it will help explain bridge maps just a little bit better.
You may have heard the expression, build a bridge and get over it. Well, with the bridge map, you build a bridge and get into it. Just as the multi-flow map is used for cause and effect, a bridge map is used for analogies, a kind of in-depth comparison to understand similarities in relationships. For example, a pencil is a tool for writing, just as a shovel is a tool for digging. See how it works? Both are tools, but for different purposes. Well, how about this one? My 2 favorite beverages, coffee and Powerade. They both invoke powerful feelings, but different feelings. Coffee makes me feel like a superhero. just as Powerade makes me feel like an Olympic champion. You can bridge analogies across more than just two things with the bridge map. Let's see. A car is smaller than a bus, just as 42 is smaller than 86, and 1/4 is smaller than 1/2, and a centimeter is smaller than an inch. Hey, neat. All superheroes have powers, right? But different powers. Superman has the power of flight, just as Batman has the power of technology, and Spider-Man sure can sling those webs. You could use a bridge map to help you study for that social studies test on explorers. A bridge map will help you keep straight which explorer traveled to which land. Or in science, you could, hold on folks, this is totally rockin'. You could use a bridge map to help you study for that science quiz on rocks. And not only could you build a bridge to show how rock formations are analogous, how they compare, you could bridge the bridge to provide an example as well. Cool, rockin'. So, whenever you are looking to explain or clarify the relationships between things, you can build an analogy by building a bridge map. Build a bridge and get into it.
Okay, so now that we've looked at what a bridge map is and how we can use it, does anyone have any questions? Bridge maps are used to compare two completely different things that have similarities in them. That is one way of looking at it, absolutely. When you are looking at analogies, you're looking for how things are the same. That's why they've used the word comparison. Remember we said that the verb compare means to look for the similarities. So yes, absolutely, that's exactly what we're doing. Absolutely. So throughout the video, we have been using the bridge map, just not writing it down. So one student gave an example of how he looked after his pets. Then you gave an example that was completely different, yet still using the same verb. I then gave a completely different example, still using the exact same verb. So we were making analogies. We were looking at how the verb was being used throughout three different aspects. One within school, one outside of school, and one within school again. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this Cognitive Level 3 video. We have now concluded all the different cognitive levels that we were looking at, as well as the verbs that they are using within those cognitive levels. I hope that the examples we have given you have been very insightful and that they've provided you with the information that you need just to allow a little bit more clarity in what your teachers are actually asking of you. Thank you.